IPMNation.com.
Good evening and welcome to the 262nd episode of All Natural Being here on IPM Nation. We're getting ready to kick it off over on Facebook Live, as you know, for Fly on the Wall video. But I wanted to stop by and thank everyone here at IPMNation.com. Now, soon to be, if it isn't called already, Mortal Up Radio. At least that's the channel. Thank you so very much for joining me. Thank you so very much for putting up with the transition. And here we are. We're getting ready to go. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being.
Live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, there you go. That'll work.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Thank you so very much for joining us here, and welcome to the 262nd episode of the number one rated show here on IPMNation.com, The Gong heard round the world, as you know. You're into All Natural Being, broadcast as it happens here on IPMNation.com. And, of course, if you're watching me, then you know about Facebook for on the fly of the wall video, if you will. Live from the Outpost Studios here in Columbus, Ohio, with rebroadcast now on iTunes and iHeartRadio. Greetings wherever you are, here in the Garden of the Mortals. Hello from the truest parts of your mind. Because remember, life, it's your labyrinth. Your shot at running the table is right now. That's why we're always putting your heart's highest priority top of your list. It's our goal to place, if you will, your primal scream front and center in your life. We're reinstalling and reinstating the true wisdom and, let's say, wit of your inner whisper, because it's time to reboot your robust, to find your ferocious, to out-brutal the brutal that is the cut and shuffle that fate deals you on a daily basis, and to bring your own bold once and for all. But before we hit it today, I already owe a prayer bowl share, so thank you very much for that. Hello to my friends here in the United States and Canada, Mexico, the UK, my good friends in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands. To those of you joining us from all over the globe, it's great to have you with us. I truly am fired up to be driving your bandwagon, to be your biggest fan, to be avidly you. It's time to mortal up. So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. And I have to tell you that in addition to, all the time saying, I love being your virtual hitchhiker, I like to think of it as welcome to convenience, right? Wherever you're going, just go ahead, throw me in the cup holder of the car, take me over to the gym if you're getting a late night workout in, or just sit me up on the counter. If you're still hanging out in the kitchen, hit the play button. If you go to IPMNation.com/ANB now, then you're going to be able to hang out with us, and we'll be responding to everyone here in the thread. And also, we're excited now to be offering, but we're going to have callers calling in. We have a very special guest that'll be spending a good portion of the show with us this evening, because we're talking about some things that I'm pretty fired up about, as you can imagine. So let me say hello quickly to some of my friends here in the feed, and thank you. Wait a minute. You don't need to hear you don't have to sound like me. Did you actually say reboot? I think we said reboot. Hi, Brian. Somehow it feels like morning. Josephine, I'm with you. Janile, say hello. I will, for certain. Nice to see you, my friend. Henry, did you actually say reboot? I believe I did say reboot. Good evening, Henry. Good evening, Dallas. Good evening, Rita. Nice to see you all. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. And what we're talking about, before we take our first caller, what we're talking about today is now what's called Mortal Up Radio. And as you know, heretofore, it's been the morning time, as you said, Josephine. It feels like morning. We've had the gong heard round the world, and it's rebroadcast at 7 a.m. local time, wherever you are in the world, 24 time zones. Wherever you are, it's broadcast live. But what we've decided to do now with Mortal Up Radio is it's an answer to all the things that are aligned against us. And by that I mean all the different things. When you think of our environment, it really is a giant scavenger hunt for our mental and physical health. So Mortal Up Radio is going to be that place where we can all get together throughout the day. There'll be different programming, different shows, different segments and the like. But it's all about standing up against the people standing up for you and against the people that are just, I guess you could call it just hell-bent on hijacking your sense of self. They're just absolutely ready to go, no, my agenda in your life is more important. And so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about at Mortal Up Radio what it takes for you to regain control of the cockpit, and how after all these years of everyone trying to run roughshod over us and our lives, we're going to stand and say, and I think just in the nick of time, look at the mashugana in the world today. And I wanted to read a quick little story, because if you followed me in the mornings, then you know about our segment called Lowlifes Making Headlines. And I never mention people's names, but this will give you an idea of just how out of touch we've grown. This particular person, I've read, and according to the article, was having her nails done. Maybe her toenails done. I don't know. In any event, this particular person was having their nails done. And it didn't go quite the way they expected. So they got ticked off. They left the nail salon, according to the report, even after the manager says, oh, well, can we redo it for you? Can we do this or that? This person says no, bolts, doesn't pay. Then when the owner, maybe someone else in the salon, runs out, she, I guess, hooks him with her car, drags him across the parking lot. So now, because she didn't like the French tip or whatever they're called, I guess, her ego, her sense of self was so great that she was going to drag a human being across the parking lot, allegedly. But you ready for this? She was a social worker, right? So you'd think she'd corner the market on what it would take to make sure that you knew how to run a human mind. And you ready for this? So if I remember correctly, and you're reading the article, she climbs into a BMW. Well, right, as one would. She's a therapist. We should know how the human mind works. It's got to be working well for her, teaching other people how the human mind works, because unless she hijacked or carjacked it, she's driving a BMW. And because her manicure doesn't go the way she wants, she goes outside, stiffs the place for the payment for the manicure. So I guess she's not giving a tip anytime soon, and then decides to hook someone and drag him across the parking lot in her car, trying to get away. What has happened to us? The ego running roughshod, controlling every aspect of what we do. What has happened? How have we gotten to the point where something is really a manicure or a pedicure? Maybe it was a pedicure, I don't know. But whatever it is, you're getting your nails done, whatever set of nails you're getting done, it doesn't go to your liking, and you decide to throw a fit and throw some gravel in the parking lot, hook an employee and dragging him across. Well, now she's looking at a felony. But the reason that I bring that up is, what is it? Hello, Kelly. Nice to see you. What is it that happens so that our sense of self becomes so compromised that we think that that's a good idea? Here's another story that I saw today. A guy was a guy arrested, because I don't want to mansplain, right? Let's spread the love around. A guy was arrested for discard a loaded firearm. Gets involved in an accident, takes a loaded firearm before the patrol arrives, and he tosses it alongside the street, into the bushes, into the shrubs or whatever. So the police get up there, but here's the only thing. The guy had a handgun tattooed. Did you see this? Guy had a handgun tattooed on his forehead. Again, what has happened to where, the officer says to you, do you have a gun? No, sir, I don't have a gun. Whoa, yet you felt moved enough to have a tattoo of an automatic handgun tattooed right between your eyes, right on top of his forehead. It wasn't even hair. There was no way of covering it. So my question is, what has happened to humanity's sense of self, this sense of ego, where this kind of stuff makes sense? A gun tattoo, especially if you're going to violate gun laws. And I think he was a convicted felon, so he wasn't even allowed to have the gun in the first place. Who knows about the gun tattoo? I guess you can still get those kind of tattoos regardless of your criminal record. So, or here's a young lady that says, oh, I don't like my manicure. I don't like my pedicure. Good evening, Chris. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us here at All Natural Being on Mortal Up Radio. We're talking about getting a manicure and a pedicure. It didn't go the way she likes, so she throws a guy on the hood of the car or hooks him with a door, a trunk, a bumper, whatever it was. But now she's facing a felony because her sense of self was tied up in her manicure or pedicure. So again, I ask, what has happened? How is it that we become so precariously perched on the edge of a definition of who we truly are, that this kind of stuff makes sense? What has happened to the human mind so that an ego, which, as far as I'm concerned, outlasted its stay? Good evening, Sarah. Nice to see you. Thank you so very much for joining us. Hey, hey, hey. Can't wait to take full advantage of the slide. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Thank you for joining us. Please tell everybody we said howdy. And we're talking about what has caused us to go mashugana in the world. And those couple little stories are nothing compared to some of the other things. All you got to do is get on a social media feed, or you do this or you do that, and you go, what has happened to us? How is it that our sense of self has become so precariously perched that this kind of stuff makes sense? And more importantly, if we're spending our bandwidth on doing that kind of thing, what happens to us? People getting manicures is the problem. Yeah, I'm with you. But no. Just in case anyone gets a manicure, I'm sure there's a lot of lovely people that get manicures that if they're disappointed with the job, don't try to throw the store manager up on the hood of their BMW as they leave the parking lot at 50 miles an hour or whatever it was, right? So I'm just thinking, okay, but ultimately, what has happened when we live in a society that our sense of self is so precariously wrapped up in outside opinion, outside conjecture? Now, I don't know from personal experience. Maybe manicures, pedicures, maybe they feel good, but my sense is we get manis and pedis or any of these other things because we like the way it makes us look. We like the upvote or we like giving our sense of self over to the status quo, right, to the committee vote, and we like it when everyone says, oh, that's a really nice pedicure you got going there. Maybe that's it. But my question ultimately becomes, if we're focused on all the opinion of outside conjecture, that's a little bit of bandwidth that we're busy burning through instead of putting our heart's highest priority, top of the list. So for those of you that haven't joined the show before, you should know that in the process of recovering from the aftermath of 3 surgeries to remove a golf ball-sized brain tumor, I'm a little focused on what it takes to make sure that my immune system is up to speed to such a degree that it will help heal a huge hole that I have in the back of my head. So philosophically, I wonder, what would it take if we had a philosophical immune system? Something that we could do to bolster ourselves, to defend ourselves against the craziness of the ego. What would we do? All right, let's see who our first caller is. Good evening. Welcome to All Natural Being.
How are you?
Henry, I hope that's you. Good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, sir.
What's going on?
Full-time job. Staying out of trouble.
For staying out of trouble. Very good. Well, you know, it's interesting. I was just talking about, speaking of full-time jobs, of staying out of trouble. What has happened so that the ego can run roughshod over us to such a degree that some of the examples that I made mention earlier, the young lady in the parking lot, right? She was a social worker, a therapist, of this and that, and she must be doing well. She's driving a BMW. But the sense of getting a manicure gone wrong was so insightful to her that she ran the risk of running over someone, allegedly running over someone with a car. What happens to us where the outside opinion of the committee vote is so important to us, Henry, that we'll let that satellite of the committee vote, the ego, we'll let that little satellite office ricocheting around on our head totally cause us to do something like recklessly endanger the life of another person over a manicure. What the hell has happened to us?
You know, ego is such a fun thing. I mean, because think about it. It's been confused with inspiration. I think people think that being individual is important, and so we really do everything we can to be individuals. And since ego, if defined, ego is self, simply self, everything, self-image, self-confidence, self-importance, self-worth. And I think this is really some self-importance issues that are out there. We lose sight of the fact that we actually do live in a society, and that we are not just self, but we really are a group, an organization. Society that's the way we function. But we want to get out there and prove and show our individuality and express our own individual beliefs and our own individual reactions to things. And we've just gotten it all confused. We think that's acceptable, and it's not.
So then at some point, we reach a stage where we can continue to carry on in unacceptable behavior, right? Or we can go, wait a minute, the underlying operating system is enlightenment. The underlying operating system is a sense of connection to all things in our environment, our surroundings, but not to get to the point where we get hijacked by it and then cause us just to do crazy things. And you don't have to throw someone on the hood of your BMW after a manicure to constitute being crazy in terms of some of the things. All you have to do is look at social media. All you have to do is look at any of the news feeds and go, did that person really just do that? How has it grown to such a degree of late, Henry, that the ego, it seems to be emboldened anymore to such a degree. It doesn't even care if it makes you look bad, which is why I've often said that the ego is a parasite. It doesn't mind destroying its host, right? But what has happened to where in this day and age, it just looks like it's running amok in some people?
It really is. And I think that's really what it is. I mean, when you deal with political correctness, so you can't really hurt anybody's feelings, and or you're not supposed to.
Right.
And this kind of opens the door for ego to just go and do its thing. It is, as you said, it's a virus. Ego just is prolific. It penetrates and affects every part of us, of our character, every part of our body, and it is a driving force. And sometimes we just let it go and let it run amok. And again, to add to that, the failure of people to be responsible for themselves. We just aren't responsible anymore. And so that allows ego to even go crazier.
Good evening, Chuck. I want to say hello. Henry, you should also know that Janile is saying hello to you as well. Good evening, Mr. Devereaux. Nice to see you stop by here at All Natural Being. And what we're talking about is this sense of ego running so amok in some people that it really does atrophy a normal, healthy sense of self. So that we have the ego up until a certain point. And I don't think, we've talked about this before, where it's never about eliminating the ego, Henry. It's about illuminating some of its tricks. But you reach a certain age. I just did a recording the other day that warning some content may be considered offensive for children under the age of 65. Right? You get to a point where you go, wait a minute. The ego was there in the very beginning, like the launch of the space shuttle, right? You got the two, as you know intimately, Henry, we've got the two solid rocket booster fuel tanks, and they're jettisoned, right? You wouldn't see them trying to get into the space shuttle, right? Trying to get into Skylab, whatever it's called, right? With these big tanks, they're jettisoned. Well, much the same as we reach a maturity, we reach a certain age where enlightenment is supposed to take over, and we jettison that ego. I've talked before about water wings or training wheels. If you're my age and you're riding down the street on your bicycle with training wheels, it's pretty much time to find the wrench. What's happened, Henry, to where people have decided for whatever reason not to jettison that gimme, 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 and now wake up one day in life and go, there's got to be more to life than letting my ego overwhelm all of my decisions. What's happened to us?
Well, first of all, hi, Janelle, and hi, Sarah, and hi, Kelly, and hi, Brian, by the way. And
hi, Henry.
Want to at least say hello to everybody. Yeah, ego. We really do require it, and we have talked about that. Required it. It's when we're young, it really it does help us. It keeps us with the fight and flight. It keeps us with the necessities of what it is to grow up. The problem is that we do grow up, and I think we lose being the kid and the child in us, and we have to perform in society, and ego tends to take over and runs the show for us. And we lose control when we should be controlling ego and setting it back. And thank it. That's great. Thank you very much for getting me to this point in my life. But it's time to sit back and just sit there. And if I'm kind of going off kilter, then let me know what's going on. But ego just doesn't work that way, and we have not gotten responsible enough to really control it. Add to that, most people don't even want to admit that they have an ego. And if they do admit they have an ego, they think it's good for them because it's all about, that whole thing about self, my self-importance and my self-confidence, and this is what gives me my self-image, and that's important in life. Well, it isn't. It's in the life that we live here, yes, but that's the reason why we have it is because of the life that we live here.
And then, Henry, it's interesting that you use the word self because I think a lot of people equate ego with the term a healthy sense of self. But you can have a healthy sense of self grounded in enlightenment, grounded in ultimately who you are. That has nothing to do with ego. So I think we've conflated the terms of a healthy sense of self. He's very strong-willed. He's got a strong ego in him. Well, that has nothing to do with a healthy sense of self, does it?
No, it doesn't. Not at all. Again, it takes you and drives you pretty much away from society. It really does. It forces you into that individual thing and the competition that goes along with this and everything that we have learned to do, being number one, beat out your competitors at all costs. That's all ego. That's all good. Nose to the grindstone. It's all ego. Work hard and you'll succeed. And well, of course, what happens is when you don't succeed, guess who comes through the door? It's
sure.
Ego. And they drive over people and drag them through parking lots.
And drag them through parking lots. It was the craziest story I had ever heard. Now, I get it. And the manager had even offered to refund. I think, well, let me just say this. Again, knowing nothing about manicures and pedicures, but if I remember reading the article correctly, the manicure was for $30. If anyone knows, is that normal? Is that a manicure is more expensive, less expensive? Maybe a part of me is like, well, if you pay $30 for a manicure, what are you thinking, right? You're not happy with the way a $30 manicure worked out. Well, maybe that's a part of the problem. But no, she got mad. They offered her a refund and everything else. And it made me think of you right away, Henry, because I know we're going to talk this evening about one of the new posts you put up on SoundCloud. I really enjoyed it today, by the way. And I won't steal your thunder, but I'll have you put the thread here, or I'll have you put the link here in the thread. But we're talking about, the ego catching us hook, line, and sinker. And what happens to us when we reach a certain age where we should be retiring, right? Where we should be enjoying life, where we should be everyone running around, especially the motivation industrial complex. Oh, I can teach you meditation. I can teach you enlightenment. I can teach you this and that. Well, you're already enlightened once, just like your immune system. Your immune system's already dialed in to do everything you need it to do. Once you help it in terms of combating some of the toxins, you're already enlightened. Once you help combat some of the toxins the ego will introduce, the underlying operating system is enlightenment already. So if you would, tell us a little bit about the writing today and exactly what went into recording it, and then give us the link, if you would, over to SoundCloud.
Oh, okay. I'll be happy to. It was, I think part of it was to give an example or to set up a stage so people can understand how we got the way we are, and in fact, I'll probably be referring to something different from what I had written today, just to bring it to, just to give a better sample of what it is. But ego ego to me is almost a chronic illness. We listen to it and we believe what it says, and most of the time it just misrepresents itself as a good thing for us, a good thing for our soul. It's a great thing to have around. But because of the self is the main definition of ego, and it was interesting looking up the word. It actually ego can't be defined without self, and it's very interesting to see that. There are all these hyphenated self-worth, self-respect. It's all these hyphenated words, and we lose this conjoining, this camaraderie due to the individualism that ego represents. So what I did was I wrote, and I'm not going to bore you with reading it because it's available, and I'll put the link up.
Great,
but
thank you.
It deals with, well, I think the best way to put it is it's a scenario. I play the one that's in charge, wants to have all the control, wants to have all the money, and wants to have all of the power, and I lay out a sample of how I actually can do this to you, and you actually would enjoy it. It would be a great thing for you to do, and it really depicts exactly what's gone on and what is going on in society today and what has gone on. And I tie together the ego, how I use advertising to go against your ego, to use your ego against you, forcing you to spend and spend and spend and spend. I set up the scenario as a banker where I am actually I'm looking to get rich, so I become a banker thinking I can go ahead and loan people money. And of course, initially in the thing, it's people aren't borrowing because people they live from one day to the next with the money that they have. They budget it. They put the money aside for their food. They put the money aside for their next child. They put their money aside for the house that they would love to own.
Mm-hmm.
They put their money aside to buy a car. So there's no reason for them to borrow money from me. So I have to create the reason. And so I go through this whole scenario in the article about how I can create this whole situation where you own a home, or you've bought a home and you owe the bank, a ton of money. You bought your car and you owe the bank a ton of money, and education is paid for and you owe a ton of money, and everything that we deal with, credit cards, and all of it is getting me wealthy because that's who you're paying, and I can simply control. I can control your credit. I can control everything that you do with your funds. So it's really just an article of trying to get people to understand you're not in control at all.
But so in other words, the banker is equated to the ego, where the ego wants you to do all these different things in order, like all the bling, all the opulence. Henry, before you answer that, let me say hello to Melissa quickly. Also, Dana. Good evening. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. So in the article and in the audio that I encourage people, I know you have it over on SoundCloud. Are you saying then that the ego equates to being the banker who will just charge really exorbitant fees, I'm guessing, but in the end, it doesn't really make you any wealthier at all?
No, actually, the banker is the person that's actually using ego for its own gain, to get you hooked into everything. I mean, for example, when you really look back, and not that long ago, when light bulbs lasted 25,000 hours, and and products that were made of excellent quality, they just didn't break down.
Okay.
And so my whole objective was to say, listen, company, I can get you can make a whole lot more money if you could sell more product. Well, and of course they're saying, well, yeah, but we make such a good product, nobody wants to buy it anymore because they don't need to. And so we say, yeah, well, so why don't we build in some failure, reduce the quality, people will need to buy more, and because they live on a budget, they can't afford it, so they're going to have to start borrowing money from me, and I'm going to finally make money. And so that's what the banker is doing. He's manipulating the entire system, putting people in debt, and you want it now, and he's playing off of everybody's ego to get them. I mean, for example, one of the it is the main process in advertising. It's problem, resolution, solution. And I lay out the steps there. There's only 4 steps to it. It's a very simple process. It's 1, I create a problem that really doesn't exist. And then I present a means for the problem that doesn't exist to be resolved. And then I introduce the product or the service that satisfies the resolution to the problem that doesn't exist.
Okay.
And then by building in planned and built-in obsolescence, that generates the product, that more sales of the product, and you'll sell more so long as that problem that doesn't exist exists. So that is the whole concept. And when you look at advertising, name a product, name a product, toothpaste. How did we create a problem? Well, boy, you suffer from bad breath? Oh, crap, maybe I do. All right, well, listen, there is a solution. We can solve this problem.
Tequila.
Tequila. There you go.
Right, it's always helping with my bad breath.
That's and so here's this toothpaste.
Okay.
Satisfies the need. So now you have to buy this toothpaste. Or, and this is it. It's playing off of people's ego, not anything else but ego. And everything we do, you got to buy the Mercedes. You don't want to buy the Honda. You want to buy the Mercedes. And it plays off the ego. And so people go into debt to buy the Mercedes so that you can fit into society.
Okay.
And this is how we do that. And people make a fortune doing this. And this is how we work it.
Henry, let me just interrupt quickly to say hello to Janice and Oso. Good evening, both of you. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. So, Henry, in the closing minutes that we have here, because I want people to read the article and listen to your riff over at SoundCloud, what are some of the things that we can do if you wake up? I have to tell you, I was clipping right along and never, I had a conversation today about it, never thought that I was going to get a golf ball-sized brain tumor. So we make all these plans, we make all these things, and we believe that we can control fate. We believe that we can control all the slings and arrows coming at us. Well, in fact, I could no more have controlled that than I could control whether the sun comes up tomorrow morning. So at what stage do we realize, given we like shiny things like fish? Absolutely, Mr. Wallman. That's why I think Henry said, would you say that the title of the article, Henry, is Gone Fishing?
Oh, actually, it's funny. I actually put it as my formula for control, and the way in fact, here I'll read the very first paragraph to you, and you'll see where the fish falls in here. I said, here is my formula for control, my way of hooking the most valuable fish in the water. Hypothetically, let's say I wanted to make a lot of money and have a lot of power and have a lot of control. So how could I plausibly do this? How could I really hook everyone into parting with their hard-earned money, right, and have them believe they've gone fishing on a fishing holiday? I said, remember, this is an extremely simplified fishing lesson on how to hook, land, and clean a fish. And in this case, that fish is you.
So how do we undo if we reach a certain age in life, like Oso says, we like shiny things like fish. What's the remedy for it? What's the RX for if we reach a certain age and we go, yeah, we've been hooked. We fell for it. We didn't realize early on that there's a shelf life, right? A born-on expiration date, and that there really is some planned obsolescence worked into an ego, that we reach a certain age and enlightenment is supposed to take over, which is fascinating me, Henry, all these years, to be honest with you, because if you study the world's, let's just say you study the world's religions, everyone reaches a certain stage in that religion. They retire, and then they head off into the wilderness. Think about it. Every religion is full of people that go, oh, no, I've reached a certain age, and I'm going to retire and head off into the woods. Jan's squirrel. Yes. Jan's like a busy squirrel. We're busy running around looking for all kinds of nuts. But we reach a stage in life where we're going to retire. We head off into the woods because we're going to commune, have a sense of enlightenment, have a sense of achievement. We've worked really hard. So how does one unhook themselves from what you were talking? Or do you go into that in the article? So I should just say everyone should listen, because at the end, do you teach us how to unhook ourselves?
Well, yes. No, I don't go into too deep depth of a detail, because I'm really trying to stress a point here to just get people to wake up a little bit and start realizing what's going on. But what we do is ego ego runs shotgun with us, and really does play a great job in manipulating us into doing what it wants us to do. And I think what happens is that we have forgotten that this body does fail. I mean,
sure,
we do have problems, and this will end. We may be eternal. We go on forever. That's great. The energy just goes on forever. But the body does go away. So all of this, the stuff that we believe we have to have, is being driven by ego and not by us. If it were being driven by us, we wouldn't be going beyond our needs.
We would just ultimately want to be happy. We would just want to ultimately experience that sense of fulfillment that has nothing to do with outside bling or baubles or status. Yes? Exactly.
I mean, as a child, you look at a child. I mean, it doesn't matter who they play with. They don't care.
Right.
It just doesn't matter. They are happy. They are content. They're full. They're totally complete. And so here's this child that is perfect there. And then we become adults, and we complain about not being happy. We're not complete. We've got to find somebody in our life that completes us, and we're not content with anything, and we're off. This is great. I have my spouse, but no, I'm going to go after this young one because that makes me feel. I'm sorry, but this is all ego driven, and the fact is that we surround ourselves and wrap ourselves in so much unhappiness. We've lost the fact that we are happy. We forgot the kid in us. We forgot it. And so if we just and it's really simple, strip away the unhappiness, stop associating with what makes you unhappy. I mean, if negative people make you unhappy, well, then don't hang around with them.
Well, and don't be one.
Don't be one.
Well, yeah, for me, I think that was in terms of it, I could every day go, okay, I could put up with the headaches, I could put up with the fog, I can put up, the craziest thing, to be honest with you, Henry, is being out in public. And just when you think, oh, yeah, my age, I'm still, I still have people turn heads when I walk in a room. Then you realize they're looking at the scar and the garden hose I have growing out of the top of my head, right? So it's given me appreciation for women that have said heretofore in the past, excuse me, eyes, up here, guys, up here. I'm out in public now going, excuse me, eyes, down here. Down here, don't look at my shunt. So, but what happens is we get to a certain point where we go, yeah, it just isn't going to matter, right? Well, I've got more scars than a Halloween Frankenstein mask now. So I could have very well gotten to the point where I go, yeah, that outside opinion and conjecture is going to be important to me. Or I could have worked to cultivate what I consider to be the counterpunch, and it is tapping in. I call it all natural being. You call it that underlying sense of happiness, that underlying sense of enlightenment. Here quickly in the closing minutes, how do we get back to that? Because if it's there and it's our underlying operating system, how do we get rid of the ego? How do we put it on the back burner so that we can enjoy the fact that we're still here? As also says, we got to trust each other again and value humanity again. But I would say that there's human gettings, and as you know, I believe human beings. Everyone hell-bent on getting something to make themselves feel full, as opposed to those people that believe they already have it. So how do we, if he's right, and I believe that he is, we have to value humanity again. How do we value human beings, suggesting that maybe human gettings, maybe that's not the way to go?
No. I'll give you 10. If you got time for 10, I'll give you 10 of them, of what we can actually do. Number one, understand that the greatest stress that we go through when dealing is mostly when we deal with difficult people.
Okay.
It's not fueled by the words or the actions of this person. It's fueled by the way we react to the words. It's our perceptions.
Okay.
So if you simply give their words and actions importance, you've given them power over you. So there's the stress.
Okay.
Be compassionate. Don't be sympathetic.
Right.
Be compassionate.
Is that number 2?
Sympathy. Yes, that's number 2.
Okay, compassion.
That's suffering, where compassion provides a means to end the suffering. And so you don't want to see people, you don't want to see them suffer.
Sure.
So give them the food. Teach them how to fish.
Right. Okay, number 3.
And you got it. Number 3, it's okay to be upset. Being upset defines your boundaries. However, it's never okay to be cruel.
Oh, can I just, when you said that to me, what I first thought of is you hear people all the time, especially in dealing with physical ailments, they go, oh, I got to get on top of this inflammation. Well, what do you mean? Oh, I got bad inflammation. It's led to chronic stress or oxidative stress or chronic diseases in my life. And then you stop for a moment, you remind folks, inflammation in and of itself isn't bad. Prolonged, right? Inflammation in and of itself is designed by the body to remove pathogens. It finds a trespasser. It finds someone trying to burglarize your sense of health. And inflammation is the body's way to send fluids and warmth to the area, neutralize the threat, snap off, and move on. So it's not unlike that when you say philosophically, it's okay to be upset, but to let it fester. It's not that inflammation is a bad thing. It's not that being upset is a bad thing. It's when you let it fester and stick around and it becomes chronic festering. It becomes chronic grudge holding. It becomes chronic disappointment. It becomes chronic inflammation. That's where you get yourself in trouble. Not, as you say, that it's okay to be upset. Not in the beginning stages. It's just that when you let it overstay its welcome and it hijacks your philosophical immune system, then you got yourself some trouble, I would think.
Exactly. Yes. No, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what it is. Because what it does is it leads into my fourth one, which is simply forgive others.
Sure.
Not because they deserve forgiveness.
Right.
And certainly not because your own arrogance places you above them, but it's simply because holding on to the resentment and that you're forever chained to them. You are totally under their control.
Right.
And so you're never free to be happy, nor able to find peace. So forgiveness frees you from those chains that tie you to the people that they make you an eternal victim is what lack forgiveness. The fifth one, stay positive. When you're surrounded with negativity, stay positive and smile. Just simply smile when others refuse to. It's a simple way to simply affect a change in the world around you, but most important, inside of yourself.
And I would say, Henry, if I could, in a lot of the studies that I've been doing, especially with all this extra time lying in a hospital bed, and you get tired of staring at the ceiling after a while, but I'm reading all these books, and there's an entire camp of science that now says you don't smile because you're happy because you caught yourself smiling. That it's the actual biological function of the smile that your brain catches up and goes, well, I'm smiling. I must be happy about something. So there really is something to it. Not just that your smile affects the community around you, but they now believe that the smile, right? William James, pretend as if. It doesn't mean like you pretend as if you already own the Lamborghini and it's red and it's in your garage with your house full of books alongside of your Olympic swimming pool. That's not the type of pretend as if he was talking about. But your body, they now believe, in that 7 seconds that it takes for a thought to register in your consciousness, it's already affected your body long before your brain's ever aware of it. 7 seconds, Henry. Think about that. Before you get ready to respond to me, know that I could go right now, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. I can get all the way to 7, 1,000. And your response would have been registered in your mind before you even spoke it to me. So I think you're absolutely right. There's something about this smile. Thank you, Janelle, very much. There's something about this smile that very well sets you up to be in an excellent mood because you wouldn't have smiled if you weren't.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, we are really in total control of ourselves if we want to take that responsibility. Another one, gossip and drama ends at the wise person's ear.
Sure.
Be wise and seek to understand before you attempt to judge. And when you do judge, use your judgment as a tool for making positive choices that help you build your own character, not as a weapon to put other people down and trying to destroy their character.
I like that one.
Yep. Always set an example. Treat everyone with kindness and respect, even those who are rude to you. Not because they're nice or respectful, but because you are.
Oh, you know what my favorite one of that is, Henry? Is if you're ever in a traffic and the traffic's really heavy and you signal someone, go ahead, come on in. And a friend of mine was riding with me the other day and he said, can you believe they didn't even wave thank you after you let them in. There's got to be 100 cars behind you. They didn't even wave thank you. When they go, well, I didn't do it because I needed a wave.
That's right.
I did it because I wanted to do it. I didn't need a wave. And as you know, Henry, my favorite one is holding a door for women. And I've been attacked of late. Not just me. Other people have been attacked of like going, women don't need a sense of chivalry anymore. We're capable of opening our own doors. And a couple of times in the last few years, I've gone and opened a door only to offend the woman that I'm holding the door open for because she goes, I'm strong enough to get my own door. At which point I shut the door on her and go, great, prove it to me that you have that. I'd like to see that bent over row as you're grabbing the handle of the door to pull it forward. But the point being, I don't do it because I want the wave or the compliment or this or that. I do it just because it's something that makes me feel good to put another human being in front of my own time frame, my own schedule. It just feels great to me. So it's clearly a selfish move. Now that I think about it, I hear myself say it out loud. I'm clearly being selfish, being unselfish to other people. I love it.
Yeah, you can look at it that way, but no, you're being inspirational. You're doing what is really what helps others, not being egotistical and doing for yourself. So that works out well.
Well, I'd like to think, brother, that somewhere down the road, the person that I just let in would pay it forward, would return the favor. You never know. But I most certainly don't do it for that being the case. So I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. So number 7.
Number seven. I think I was talking about, always set an example. Treat everyone with kindness and respect, even those that are rude to you. Not because they're nice and respectful, but because you are. And to do your best to be thankful to those who are rude and difficult people, because they serve a great reminder of how not to be.
Sure.
The way that you treat people that you strongly disagree with is an example of what we've learned about love, compassion, and kindness. Life is too short to argue and fight. There are points to prove and issues to win. Differences of opinion mean there's an opportunity to learn.
Sure.
And knowledge is the wisest option we can ever have.
Well, I think all you have to do is look at all the political debates now, where there are very few places where you can just go in and have a conversation. Outrage has become the new black. I did something today over on Facebook where I said, Henry, you hear of vanity plates? You ever see them when you're out driving around? People have vanity plates. Well, now it's Vanity Rage. This one's all raging. That one's all raging. But then when you look at Kathy, you look at Robert De Niro, you look at some of the head guy from the Foo Fighters now. Droll, I think, is his last name. I don't even know how to pronounce it. But you look at all these people that feign all this outrage, and I think of it as vanity rage, right? To whatever they could do to bring attention to their beleaguered sense of self, they're going to go ahead and have this rage because you got to pay attention to them while they're busy screaming and spitting and frothing at the mouth. So sorry to hijack there, but that was one of the things that I thought of when you said that wisdom means letting people say all the offensive things they want. It stops at the border. Your ears are the ones that decide whether it's offensive, whether it's irritating, whether it's any of those other things.
That's exactly right. If you really want to be happy and peaceful, then stop being afraid of being yourself and stop thinking about what others think of you.
I like that.
All you accomplish is wrapping yourself in another layer of unhappiness, and you're burying your own happiness deeper and deeper inside. Identify what is making you unhappy and discard each of those layers. There's nothing selfish about giving yourself enough space for self-care. Experience life on your terms.
Right.
And you'll be life-giving to others.
Well, you are because you're giving other people permission to be the same way. Right? When
Exactly.
I talk about the 20-minute victories all the time, Henry, and I say, for 20 minutes, 1/72nd of your day, be your own biggest fan. Be your own best friend. Be a hedonist. Be a narcissist. And people go, did you really suggest that someone should be narcissistic? Yes. Yes, I did. For 1/72nd of your day. Because here's what's happened. It's been my experience. Well, as Osa says, we are being goaded, Henry, into lesser versions of our true self. Absolutely true, brother. Absolutely true. Goaded into being a watered-down sense of who we ultimately are. right?
Yes, we are. I mean, when you look at, well, the last one, I'll just throw this one in here, and then I'll just end it with another statement down here. But don't expect to see positive changes in your life if you constantly surround yourself with difficult people. All too often, the greatest danger of being around difficult people is you start to become like them without even knowing it. Just because you are kind to someone does not mean you have to spend additional time with them.
Right.
Love, compassion, kindness lends themselves to respect. Respect yourself enough to limit your exposure to difficult people.
And remember that sometimes compassion is compassion because it shows its teeth. We talk about this all the time, about letting people walk all over your heart's highest calling, letting people drown out your primal scream, that still small voice that's at the center of your heart. And there's nothing wrong with going, yeah, I think I'll take a time out from you, right? Well, I think I'll send that call to voicemail. Well, I think that's a text I won't respond to, right? So, Henry, I know you said that there was a thought that you wanted to end with, and then we'll talk briefly before we get ready to wrap the show.
Sure.
But what was that thought that you were thinking?
Well, the thought is that this journey of changing, of understanding what's going on in this world, it can be an adventure or it can be a torture, and either one of them is the person's choice deciding to change, and because it's your perception that is really affecting everything, and our perception has been created and through our belief systems and through our learnings from our parents and our friends and education that we've received. So it's our perceptions that really get in the way of how we think. That's why we are so thick-headed. That's why we're so thin-skinned. And it's really part of the ego that establishes what our perception is. But if you really do go through this journey and you really want to do this and make decisions for yourself in your life, go enjoy it. Don't hesitate to have fun and be yourself, because that is really what it's all about.
And Henry, just as a recap, I'll go ahead. And Janice, thank you so very much. Janice put in the thread, almost like she was playing stenographer for what you were just saying, Henry. So let me just do this quickly before we have to go. Don't give words power. Be compassionate. It's okay to be upset. Don't let it overstay its welcome. Forgive others. Stay positive. Smile. Gossip and drama ends where the wise person's ears begin. Always set an example. Life is too short. Knowledge is the wisest. Stop being afraid of being yourself. Experience life on your terms. Be your own best friend. Don't surround yourself with difficult people. And respect yourself enough. So, Janice, thank you very much for that. You're right. It's a journey, an adventure, right? So it's your choice. You decide if it's how you're going to live that aspect of your life. So, Henry, thank you so very much. But would you go ahead and tell us real quickly, for those people that aren't here with us on Facebook, listening over on IPM Nation, what's the link? How do we get there? And then also post the link for me here in the feed over on Facebook. How do people get to your riff for today?
To get to, you can go to my website. It's just http://www.henrygnowell.com. And you'll see a link to the podcast, and you'll also see the link to the radio IPM Nation Live 4. So I think it's www.ipmnation.com /live 4, I believe.
Fantastic. And then you'll post that here in the thread as well.
Yes.
That sounds great. Henry, as always, thank you so very much for the inspiration. I appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and get out of here pretty soon. So thank you so very much. And please remember to put all that information in the feed for the people here on Facebook that want to tune in to hear your riff. Very, very, very powerful writing. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much, Brian, and thank you, everybody, for listening. Thanks for putting up with me. I appreciate it.
Not at all. All right, brother. We'll see you soon. Bye now. All right, so here's what we're going to do as a part of the recap. Mortal Up Radio is now going to move to a 24-hour format. And what we have to do, I talked about it at length today with my good friends from tryh2.com. When it comes to this whole sense of your immune system having everything it ever needed in order to withstand all the toxins of life. It's the same with philosophical toxins. It's the same as understanding that we live in an environment. We live in an environment where it's on one big scavenger hunt for our physical and our mental health. But that ultimately, the way we're created, the way we're built, the way we evolved. Now, whether you think we evolved from the Garden of Eden or off the savannas of Africa, either way, our immune systems, philosophical and physiological, are capable of withstanding quite an onslaught. My good friend Marcellus reminds me of his favorite term, chop blocked, that our immune system, again, philosophically and physiologically, are capable of withstanding some pretty great toxins in the environment as long as we don't chop block ourselves, as long as we don't hamstring ourselves. So that's what we'll be doing. Henry, thank you very much for putting henryGnoel.com, also IPMNation.com/live4 for his latest riff. You're really going to enjoy it. So in terms of Mortal Up Radio, what we're going to be doing is building the 24 hours worth of programming where we're able to go and say, okay, great, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stand up to rejuvenating who you are at your core so that you have a sense of building everything or regaining control over all of your arsenal in order to be able to defeat the toxins of life. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. We'll be off the rest of the week. We'll be back starting our full week on schedule Monday through Well, actually, it's going to be Monday through Friday this week coming up, and then we'll be going to our full-time schedule of Sunday through Thursdays, a couple hours each evening. So we're looking forward to that as well. But thank you all so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. Good night, everybody.
IPMNation.com.